if you've done even a little bit of research for yourself, there's lots of conflicting views on ultra high density grazing versus all the other types of rotational grazing. Simply put, the way Jaime Elizondo says it is there's only two types, non-selective and selective grazing. For a while I was like, I don't know, I chewed on it, and I was like, actually that's pretty spot on. By definition, right? You're either taking most of the available plant matter out there, non-selective, or you're you're selecting and leaving different species, right? It's pretty simple. So anyways, there's lots of gurus that are saying, like, do your rotations, leave half the plant, take a third of the plant, right? We've seen all these different things, and then you got non-selective, ultra high density grazing, taking it down. So I just want to share what we've experienced with it, not what really anybody else is saying, but just what we've seen here at Counterculture. So the biggest thing that I have seen help, biggest thing by far, is letting your place rest for a year, right? Letting it stockpile. We've seen native grasses pop up where we've never seen them before. Family land that we've managed for a really long time. Basically coming in with the sheep, we mobbed the whole place, did a full graze on it, and then we didn't come back for a year. I think we did that 2 years in a row, and we let it then rest for the entire growing season, okay? We had gamma grass pop up last year, several bunch of it, on 5-10 acres. It did not take over the whole place, don't get me wrong, but to see these new species that typically don't ever pop up was pretty impressive. So what we've also experienced on Bermuda grass, we have a lot of sheep. You can see them all behind me. The sheep really hate Bermuda grass and bahia. So we've run them with the cows, we've run them separate, we've done both, and we've really only done ultra high density grazing for a few months at a time. We don't do it all year long. I can list some excuses here, but basically we've got bottomland properties where it floods and we get, several feet underwater. Just in the past month or two, it's happened a couple times. Happened a lot last year with 80 plus inches of rain. So anyways, there are some spots that, like, we'll graze, 100 cows on 20 acres, some on 50 acres. Some of it, don't get me wrong, I could be doing a better job. And then there are some places that we've fenced and we're doing better with, and we're putting, a couple 100,000 pounds to the acre. Some of it we've gotten up maybe 500,000. We have not even gotten up to 1 million, and some of these crazier things, crazy cool things that people are doing. I like it. I think that it mimics nature's natural grazing systems, however I want to say it, call it. But if you look at how the bison came, there wasn't nothing behind those herds. They completely were mobbing it out. And talking about taking the tips and taking half the plant or a third of the plant, that's kind of hilarious to think in that example. I don't think that's what the bison were doing. And if you read back on some of the settlers moving through, right, following the herds, there were some stories I read that were like, there was nothing left for their horses to eat. There was nothing left for their cows to eat. There was nothing left behind these massive herds that then might not come back to that spot for a year, for several years, right? So then you go into selective, which is what I was kind of talking about, and we'll run our sheep. We'll put a few hundred sheep on, maybe we'll put it on a half acre and really knock it back. Or in this example, we'll put a few hundred sheep on an acre to 5 acres, right? Sometimes we've even turned them out loose, which they're not selecting much at all. But let's just say in a few acres, and we're even doing daily moves on this example, okay? So we're coming in and we hit a couple acres. Maybe that's an acre, maybe that's 3 to 5 acres, depending on what the week looks like. Those sheep come in and take the blades off the stems of the Bermuda. It barely looks like they touched it. There's still a lot of grass left. Now, it's very stemmy. It doesn't have the leaf matter like it did before. So when we come back the next time, let's say 45, 60 days later, maybe we got some rains and we come back sooner. That field is so stemmy, they get way less utilization out of it the second rotation around, okay? So for our plant, for our forage quality, it goes downhill quick when we graze the sheep like that. Now, when we put them on heavy and we graze it down to the ground, right, which is kind of tough for sheep. They don't like it with these tropical grasses. So when knock it back heavy, it helps a lot if you put cows in with them too. We've had better utilization there. But eat this crap down to the ground. I mean, basically down to the crown, okay? So what's that? That's the non-selective, right? They're basically taking everything in the field, 90+% utilization. I mean, something really, really heavy grazing event. When we come back the next time, everything grew back from the crown, leafed out, leaf matter's crazy, there's not that many stems, way higher forage quality. Now take that into an example that most people could understand. Cutting your hay. What's the first cutting's normally pretty stemmy. People don't tout it as being like the highest quality hay. They're really touting it as like a lower quality, even though it's got a bunch of clover and ryegrass seed, right? But for actual like leaf matter, the best cutting's typically the second, right? After you come in cut and you get that really bushy leafy growth. Okay, so very similar thing. We cut it back down very, very low. Most people are cutting down, oh, so low, almost to the soil with cutting hay. You come back and it all regrows and you get this really leafy plant, right? So similar thing, except with the ruminants. You're trying to get all the manure out there. You're trying to get a little bit of soil disturbance. Trying to get the saliva down to the crown. Lots of stuff there that I don't understand exactly what nature's doing, but something special happens and it booms. Biodiversity, life, the whole thing, forage quality, the roots go deeper. It's really crazy. Okay, so here's our next example. A couple years ago, we were in a really bad drought. We were doing the take half, leave half, or take a third, whatever. We didn't have a spring flush. Like, it was so dry in the spring, which is kind of crazy for here. We were rotating across the property, doing our 30 to 60 day moves, right? The Bermuda was struggling. I mean, we weren't getting rain. It wasn't coming back. So we come in, I think we had like a 12 to 15 inch Bermuda plant. Take the tops off it. Let's say we're down to, say we're down to 8 inches now. Well, we rotate, we come back again, take another couple inches off, going, oh my gosh, it's not growing. It didn't grow a half inch. Come back again. We're nearing the end of the summer now, and this stuff is not coming back. We're running out of grass, and we're down to a few inches of grass left. We're going, oh, this is not working. Thankfully, we had stockpiled another place, a few different big pastures we had stockpiled, just knowing that we were going into a drought, knowing in March, April we weren't getting any rains. We better stockpile and get ready for the end of the year because it's going to be bad. So we stockpiled, and that really saved our butts. So going forward, doing these different types of grazing, right, we started looking more at non-selective and have been trialing that for a few years on and off. Did a lot more of it last year. And it's insane. If you stockpile a large portion of your property, like let's say a third or a half, then you non-selectively graze like we did, as long as you're letting those plants come back and recover fully, that's one of the big things I see with a lot of people. There's been some more famous people promote it, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, your grass is so short or whatever. It doesn't mean that the whole program is bad itself. It just means that some people aren't letting their grasses fully recover. And it's the same thing with people that are doing 60, 90-day rotations, whatever. It doesn't exactly matter because it's not math, right? It's not the exact, like, okay, we're going to come back on day 60 exactly. You wait until the forage is fully recovered. And once it's fully recovered, that's when you come back. Now, there's a few different stages in there, right, of like exactly where. We're not going to cover that in the video of how exactly to come back, but whenever it's mostly recovered, okay, that's whenever you're coming back. Not when you grazed it down to nothing and you come back when it's barely nothing, right? You're going to deplete your root system. So there's a lot of arguments that honestly aren't even making sense between the selective and non-selective rotational grazers. Some of it is completely out of context, but I can't speak much for the native grasses, but I can speak for Bermuda, and for what it's done here in our Bermuda and Bahia, it's pretty crazy. So anyways, that's some of the stuff that's been going on for a few years. We're still playing with it, still trying to figure stuff out, trying to really figure out how to utilize the bottomlands more. That's been a big issue. We had a bunch of stockpile grass that we grazed this winter, and we had to pull out several times out of the bottom because it would go completely underwater, which really screwed up the quality. And that's another great topic on this, is there's lots of people doing this on fescue, right? Woo, fescue is a completely different plant, and man, good for them for having that stockpile in the winter, because it's a great winter stockpile. Bermuda and bahia are pretty trash in the winter. You can still do it. There's still people doing it and still making it. Some people are supplementing like a high protein. We're not, but we're not also doing ultra high density grazing in the winter. We're maybe a little bit of it at first, but quickly we're going on to like longer rotations in stockpiles, and then we're feeding hay with it and doing a lot of bale grazing, just because that's how we're set up right now. Not saying we won't change that in the future, but anyways, there's some topics for you to argue about, think about, and hopefully it was thought-provoking. Take it easy. Peace.